This video will explain how to create assemblies. An assembly defines products with a layered structure called assembly steps. By using an assembly, a product can be assembled and disassembled during a simulation. To define an assembly, we will use parts registered to the product type editor. To do this, we will add parts to the product type editor. Go to the eCatalog window, Models by Type, Products and Containers, and drag and drop a Euro pallet, a parametric pallet, and a crate onto the 3D world. Select the parametric pallet on the 3D world, then go to the Component Properties window, the Default tab, and change Pallet W to 800 and Pallet L to 1200. Go to the Process tab, Editor, and click Products. In the Product Type Editor window, click Product Definition indicated by the plus sign on the top right, and then click Add Product Type multiple times for the number of placed parts. Double-click Flow Group Number 1 and change its name to Parts. Select Product Type Number 1. In the Properties window, change name to Pallet. Then, click Pick Component from 3D World indicated by the mouse cursor icon next to the Component URI input field, and select Euro Pallet on the 3D world. Select Product Type Number 2. In the Properties window, change name to Sheet. Then, click the Pick Component from 3D World icon, and select Parametric Pallet on the 3D world. Select Product Type Number 3. In the Properties window, change name to Crate. Then, click the Pick Component from 3D World icon, and select Crate on the 3D world. By doing this, we have set the parts for use in the assembly. Next, we will add an assembly and an assembly step to the Product Type Editor. Click the Product Definition icon, then add Flow Group, and then add Assembly. Change the name of Flow Group Number 1 to Full Pallets. Select Assembly Number 1, and from Properties, change name to Full Pallets Assembly. Expand Full Pallets Assembly in the Product Type Editor window. Step number 1 is a parent assembly step and cannot be deleted or moved. By right-clicking with step number 1 selected and clicking Step, a child assembly step will be added, and the selected assembly step will become the parent. Right-click the added step number 2 and click Add Step. Select step number 1 and change name to Pallet Assembly. Select step number 2 and change name to Sheet Assembly. Select step number 3 and change name to Crates Assembly. We will assign the parts to the added assembly steps. Select the assembly or assembly step and click Open Assembly Editor. With the Assembly Editor open, go to the Product Type Editor window, Full Pallets Assembly, and click Pallet Assembly. Click the yellow box on the Assembly Editor. This yellow box is an assembly box, and one part can be assigned to each assembly slot. Default product type sets the parts assigned to the assembly slot. We will assign a pallet to this assembly slot. Order index sets the order of when it is generated. When two or more assembly slots have the same value, they will be generated at the same time. Default bound dimensions sets the size of the yellow box displayed when default product type is null. Product filter allows you to set a filter for products that will be assigned to this assembly slot. We will set the other assembly steps. Go to the Product Type Editor window, Full Pallets Assembly, and click Sheet Assembly. On the Assembly Editor, the yellow box and the blue pallet are displayed. The blue pallet is the assembly slot for pallet assembly, which is the parent assembly step. To display assembly slots other than the selected assembly steps, this can be set by going to Assembly Visualization in the toolbar in the top right of the Assembly Editor. Slots displayed in blue like the current assembly slot for pallet assembly are ghosted, and cannot be selected or moved on the Assembly Editor. Selecting Show Selected Step with Ghosted Parents will display the currently selected assembly steps and their parent assembly step. The parent assembly step is displayed in a ghosted state. Selecting Show Whole Assembly will display all the assembly steps. Selecting Show Selected Step and Other Steps are ghosted will turn all assembly steps other than those selected on the Product Type Editor window to a ghosted state, and will display all the assembly steps. Select the assembly slot for sheet assembly, and change default product type to sheet. Place the assembly slot for sheet assembly on the assembly slot for pallet assembly. Finally, we will set the crates assembly. Go to the Product Editor window, Full Pallets Assembly, and click Crates Assembly. Select the assembly slot for crates assembly, and change the default product type to crate. Place the assembly slot for crates assembly on the assembly slot for sheet assembly. Only one part is assigned to each assembly slot. Therefore, when increasing the number of parts to be placed, you will need to add assembly slots by clicking the icon on the toolbar in the top right of the Assembly Editor. There are two types of icons for adding assembly slots. One for adding a single assembly slot and one for adding multiple assembly slots. Add slot indicated by the plus icon adds one assembly slot. When an assembly slot on the Assembly Editor is selected when clicked, a copy of the selected assembly slot is added. When an assembly slot is not selected when clicked, a null default product type assembly slot is added. Add slots indicated by the 9 squares icon adds multiple patterned assembly slots. When an assembly slot on the Assembly Editor is selected when clicked, the Add Slots window will be displayed on the right of the screen. Setting the number of assemblies and layouts to be added and clicking the Apply button adds copies of the selected assembly slot. When the assembly slot is not selected, this Add Slots icon cannot be used. In this explanation, we will add assembly slots using Add Slots indicated by the 9 squares icon. With the assembly slot for crates assembly selected, click the Add Slots indicated by the 9 squares icon. Set the arrangement to 2 by 2 horizontally and vertically, and click Apply. After adding the assembly slots, adjust their position. Now we will generate the actual assembly. Close the assembly editor. Go to the eCatalog window, Models by Type, Conveyors, and drag and drop a conveyor onto the 3D world. Under Models by Type, go to PM Flow Components, and drag and drop a feeder onto the 3D world. Go to Manipulation, click PNP, and drag the feeder to the conveyor to connect them. Select the feeder on the 3D world, and on the Component Properties window, click the Product Creator tab. Change part to Full Pallets Assembly. If you play the simulation, the assembly set in the assembly editor will be generated. This concludes the explanation on how to create assemblies. Thank you for watching.